Hello, fabulous friends and fans. Welcome to your horoscope for the week of November 17th, 2013. I am your astrologer, Nadiya Shah. Thank you for being here. This week starts off with a full moon in the sign of Taurus. So for all of us, there is at least one area of life that seems to come to full culmination or full fruition, if you will, and has a natural ending of sorts. Now, I did talk extensively for most signs about this, depending on how important it was for your sign, about this particular celestial phenomenon, about the full moon in your monthly horoscopes. So do have a look at those. The other really interesting thing that I think is happening this week is a series of very harmonious conversations. So we've got Mars and Jupiter, and then Mercury and Pluto, and then Venus and Saturn, all speaking in their respective conversations with great harmony. And the type of conversation they're having is one where you're handed keys in order to improve your own circumstances and given the chance to develop skills. And so this does give us a measure of control and a measure of empowerment. So it isn't so much that we're waiting for the fates to be kind to us. It's more that we're pointed in a certain direction and we see how with just a little bit of effort we can improve our circumstances. You add to this, the sun will be moving into the sign of Sagittarius this week, starting off the Sagittarius month. So happy birthday out there to all the Sagittarius. How all this speaks to you in your sign is coming up right now. Aries, this week does promise, as early in the week you have your ruling planet speaking harmoniously with Jupiter, I think you will be filled with a lot of hope. I think more than anything, you will be motivated. You will be really inspired to think more about your life, where you're going, how profitable your life has been, how you can create greater prosperity, and especially the type of prosperity that is stable and secure. Also, you can expect prosperity, pay raise, or some sort of boost to income, or at least the possibility to present itself regardless of how fully that wants to manifest. That may take a little bit more time, but these are the topics that are certainly on your mind. You're focused on achievement and moving forward, and you certainly do take steps in that direction. Taurus, this is a full moon in your sign, so this is very close to the heart. I spoke extensively about this in your monthly horoscope. This is about a matter very close to you where you understand and you finally see the truth of a situation. You admit to yourself the truth of a situation that's been held very close to your heart. And now you can say to yourself, okay, I think that I'm done with this part of it. And I think this part will go into my future and this part won't. And so it does look like, at least on a level of identity and who you understand yourself to be, especially, is going through a shift now, making this a very important week of your year. Geminis, there is a quiet energy to this week, but because in the middle of the week, your ruling planet, Mercury, is getting that support with Pluto or having this harmonious conversation with Pluto, I do think that you are going to find your empowerment within all the activities and all the changes that are taking place. And the empowerment seems to be very much under the surface. As I said, because of the position of the full moon for you, ordinarily, I'd say, okay, this is going to be a quiet week, a meditative week, a week when you want to be working on things sort of behind the scenes, if you will. But I think what's a much more likely situation is you are thinking about how to best help yourself in the bigger picture of your life. And as a result, that is going to be guiding a lot of the choices that you make behind the scenes. I also see it as a very busy week, especially where it comes to the workplace, and you are very active there. And I do think that you are going to find ways to connect with people and foster sort of seeds of relationships that are going to pay well for a long time to come. Cancer, you may find a friend is particularly helpful to you this week, at least on the surface. And I'm not seeing any maligned intentions here, but it does look like a friend may overpromise than what can be delivered. And so do accept the intention at the very least and do anticipate the best. And at the same time, know that for you, there's going to be a lot of work that you need to do, a lot of follow through that you need to do that's going to help you to make the most of this week. I do see you getting much more clear as to what your highest wishes and hopes for are for your life, and getting a clearer understanding of what it's going to take to actually get there. And also, I think that you're making some sort of a deep commitment to yourself in relation to how you are going to love now and in the future. That may or may not involve a conversation with another person, but it does look like what's most important is the resolution that you make in your heart as you come to understand love more deeply than you did before. Leos are going to find this week asks them to think about their career, think about how high they want to aim, think about what matters most in life, and to devote your energy in that direction. And so there are very key moments in life when we are asked to look at just where we are right now, if we like where we're heading. But more than that, what is it that we're doing right now to get where it is that we want to go? Now, for a lot of Leos, this is going to play out in career, but I think that a lot of you out there are going to experience this in a much more all-encompassing kind of way. So do be open to that. I do think you're asking yourself some very important questions, the kind of questions whose answers will stay with you and help clarify your direction and your path for a while to come. Virgos, this week does suggest a time when you are thinking about your vision, thinking about what it is that you actually desire to do in the world, but not in the way of Leos. Whereas for Leos, this is very much a week of accomplishment. For you, this is very much a week of inspiration. This is much more about you getting clear on your values, what matters to you most in that respect. But more than that, I also see that there is an element here of you welcoming really spontaneous, really surprising moments that help you to get this understanding as to what is really important in terms of your values and in terms of your truth. This is a very philosophical energy with you, possibly very uncharacteristically philosophical with you right now. And these understandings that you have now are going to allow you to really get in touch with what you really believe and where what you believe serves where you're going or not. And if it doesn't, then you are going to fine-tune that process, which ultimately is going to help you in the big picture of your life. Libras, this week does suggest an element of financial progress as well. And this does look like a week where you may be able to learn about, access some sort of a funding, whether it's grants, bursaries, loans, that type of thing. So if you hear of anything, do make sure to put in your applications. That is going to be really important because I do think that some source of funding could finally come through for you. Now, what I am seeing a much more likely scenario is that you see that it is in the process of coming through, but there still might be a little bit of delay. So if that should be the case, just flow with it. Know that things will come together as they should. But at the very least, you are experiencing some financial progress this week, which should be very nice for you. Scorpios, well, you still have a lot of activity happening in your sign with Mercury there, and it is a full moon in your opposite sign, which does suggest a lot of focus on what is the opposite sign. The opposite sign is opposites attracting. It tends to be people. It tends to be who you are looking at, and it tends to reflect partnerships. So whenever there's major activity happening in your opposite sign, it tends to be a time when we're looking at love differently, and we are asked to be honest with ourselves, especially with a full moon. You are being asked to be honest with yourself about who this other person is, if you like what you see or not, and where maybe what I'm seeing is the possibility that maybe you've been seeing somebody in a very idealized way, and now it's time for you to ground that energy a little bit so that you can see them for who they actually are, and that will help you to not only build a more solid foundation, but to decide where to go from here. And I think a lot of you out there are going to be quite surprised actually to realize just how maybe you've allowed yourself to believe in a fantasy and believe in a dream. And it could be very nice and very sweet and very beautiful, absolutely. And there's hope and belief and love, and that's great. And at the same time, there may be some dissonance with reality. And so your work this week is going to be to bridge the two, to understand where the two can actually strengthen each other. Reality and fantasy can strengthen each other, but certain essentials need to be in place, and that's a part of your learning this week. Sagittarians are going to find this week does, in a sense, there is a suggestion here of some financial progress for you this week. But what I think more than anything as I look at this week for you is that there is a focus on or an interest in understanding what's a little bit closer to the heart. Now, you have been going through this long-term cycle, which is being called to right now, or your attention is being called to right now, which has to do with understanding that sometimes little fears and things, restless energy can come up, and how to deal with it, and that there are healthy ways to deal with it and maybe some not so healthy ways to deal with it, but you do find a way to sort of find your balance within it all. But what I really like about this week for you also is that you understand how to use the day to your advantage so that you can channel that restless energy to your advantage. So there are going to be some changes where it comes to how it is that you are interacting with your peers, how it is that you're interacting, at least in the workspace, and how you're going about your day. And for some of you, there may even be some health information that comes through as well. And understand that it's just one step as part of a process. So you're just in one step right now as part of a larger process. But whatever health information comes right now, give it a full 2 weeks to fully understand your path forward. Capricorn, I do think that this week is really going to help you to get in touch with what you need to live a more fulfilling life. And I would have talked about some of these themes in the monthly horoscope. But what I also really like about this week for you is that there's a certain grounded energy, and there's an ownership and understanding that fulfillment isn't something that just visits you. It isn't something that just happens, but you have to slowly build a life that feels fulfilling. And you see what it is that you can do to actually build that life, and you commit to the process. And what I also see happening for you this week is this understanding that there is this idea of flowing with the changes, right? Of course, there's an idea of having your vision and being committed to it, and you've got that. But at the same time, if you refine your steps forward, if you listen to life, then you could find yourself aligning yourself to an even greater vision than something that you considered before. And also aligning yourself with the flow that allows really good things to manifest. These are the tweaks that you are making now. These are the steps that you are being shown. The only thing that you need to do is listen. And that is really the main characteristic that needs to be developed this week. Are you going to listen to life? Are you going to listen, especially when it tells you to shift gears a little bit, to make refinements a little bit? Yes, you've had a very strong vision, and that's great. Nurture that. But I do think slowly but surely, the universe is trying to show you a way towards a life that feels not only more fulfilling personally, but also could lead you to even greater accomplishment than you considered before. But it is going to be up to you to decide if you're going to listen to the omens that present themselves, if you're going to take the opportunities to actually develop new skills, or are you going to resist them? Because if you take them, I think you're going to find yourself really bringing forth skills you didn't realize you had, and really shining in new ways and seeing how those new ways can lead you somewhere even bigger than you imagined before. Aquarians, there is a very strong focus, a continuing focus on your career. And yet with this full moon, all of a sudden it becomes about home. It becomes about where you're standing. It becomes about what you need to be a good member of your family, what you need to actually feel cared for, to care for others as well, how you demonstrate that care, and how you demonstrate your love. And what I'm also seeing this week is that there may be a little bit of uncertainty as to how you actually go about being whatever it is that you consider effective, or I think a better way to put it is, and I know that this can be a bit of a loaded word, especially to an Aquarian who's committed to doing their own thing. But I think about this idea of being a good person in the family. And what I mean by that is there's a way to be good that is heavy, that is obligatory, but there's a way also to be good that allows love to flow. And so I think you are going to be expanding your definition of family, certainly. You're going to be really thinking about how you're spending your time and how to spend even more time and give even more love and receive even more love from the people that you love the most, particularly those that you consider a part of your family, whether they're family of your choosing or your actual biological family. And I think as a result, you're going to welcome in a greater understanding of love. And it all comes down to, as so far this is all about other people, but I do think that there's an element here of self-acceptance and just feeling better about yourself, feeling better in your own skin, feeling more self-possessed and more empowered just by who you are, and finding a sense of calm and peace within you. But there is an element here, as I said, of relationships. So it does look like that harmony, you working on relationships, you building your family, you healing family ties, all of that is a part of you being right with you. Just do remember, and I do think that actually the reactions and responses you get are going to be overwhelmingly positive, but do remember that ultimately whatever we do is a selfish act. And I know that sometimes the sacrifice can be very glamorized, but even that, it's been argued that everything we do ultimately comes down to what we've assessed on some level of our psyche is best for us. And so that should allow you to take greater ownership for the choices that you make. So make those choices knowing that ultimately they are for you to move yourself towards greater peace, contentment, and happiness, and also towards a greater sense of belonging. And finally, Pisces. What I love about this week for you is that you've got this beautiful energy happening in this very harmonious sectors of the sky for you. And all of them suggest to me that you are really welcoming in not only new people, but also new ideas. Really, your brain, your mind is expanding in new ways. And very often this is going to be a very spontaneous process. So I do think that a lot of Pisceans out there are going to just stumble upon the most amazing experiences that just really take your breath away. And it isn't until afterwards that the lesson kind of catches up with you. But when you're in the moment, just to be so surprised and so delighted by the people, whether it's people that you're meeting, which is the most likely scenario, but more than that, it's the messages that they carry. It is a time of a lot of messages finding you, whether they're coming by email or phone or in person. But I do think the dominant energy is going to be new people who enter, who deliver messages to you, most likely in person, and deliver experiences to you that may not be very extensive, that may end up being very brief, but have a tremendously transformative effect on your life now and for a very long time to come. I will stop there. Thank you so much again, all of you out there. I am just loving this time with you, this one-on-one time in these weekly horoscopes, taking it a little bit more relaxed than I do in the monthly horoscopes. But I thank you so much for your trust always. It'll be a great week. Enjoy. Thank you for watching. It'll be a great month. Be fabulous and enjoy.